Sergeant Morris is greeted by the White family and shows Mr. White the paw. Look at it. It's just an ordinary little paw, dried to a mummy. It had a spell put on it by an old fakir. He put a spell on it so that 3 separate men could have 3 wishes from it. Morris goes to the fireplace to burn the paw. Mr. White stops him. Morris insists that Mr. White should burn the paw and use the paw wisely. Better let it burn, said Morris. If you must wish, wish for something sensible, he said to his friend. Mr. White does not burn the paw, but instead keeps it for himself and his family to use. If you don't want it, Morris, give it to me, he says. The family jokingly wishes for 200 pounds. I wish for 200 pounds, said the old man distinctly. The paw moves and shocks the old man. After Mr. White wished for the 200 pounds, Herbert wishes them a good night and the family heads to bed. In the morning, Mr. White is at the table eating his breakfast which the madam made for him. Herbert then greets his parents and leaves for work. In the afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. White is greeted by a stranger who says he comes from Mom Megan's. The strange man tells Mr. and Mrs. White that Herbert is badly hurt, but is not in any pain. He was caught in the machinery, the man said. The man from Mon Megan's tells Mr. and Mrs. White that the company disclaims all responsibility, but in consideration of Herbert's hard work, they present Mr. and Mrs. White with 200 pounds. After hearing this, Mrs. White fell to the ground as the horror struck her. As the days pass, Mrs. White lays restlessly. Mr. White wakes up in the middle of the night to see Mrs. White thinking about her son. The man tries to comfort her, but she refuses and tells him to get the paw and wish Herbert back. Mr. White runs to the paw and says, "I wish my son alive again." Mrs. White hears knocking outside of the house and rushes to the door but struggles to get it open. Mr. White runs to the paw and wishes Herbert not to be alive anymore. The man walks over to his wife and comforts her as she lays on the ground. A year has passed and the paw's last lesson reaches the old man.